Welcome back to Stay in Your Lane podcast. I'm your host, John Maley. Today we brought back Lewie Pugh from OOIDA talking about regulatory changes. We've got one that is very passionate and close to Lewie and your members. I believe the topic here that we're going to be talking about is speed limiters on big trucks. We've heard about it for a couple years. I don't know if everyone really understands. I think most people that have been driving on the interstates have run into scenarios where they're following a couple of 62-mile-an-hour trucks, and it's a stalemate just to see who can make it up the hill and who can get past, and how long that takes we can all relate to. So if you've done any amount of driving on the interstate, you can relate to that. But I'd love to hear Mr. Pugh's perspective and the members of OOIDA.
Well, thanks again for having me. It's my pleasure to be on your show again. And when I guess the problem with speed limiters, when you hear it right off the get-go, the general public, when they hear, "Oh, we want to slow these trucks down," they think, "Oh, that's a great idea." But the reality is, it's not a great idea. And you brought up one of my talking points right off the get-go. If you drive anywhere on the interstate, it doesn't take long to get stuck behind two trucks running 62, 65, whatever, but under the speed limit. And it takes one truck 5 miles, 10 miles, a long, long time to pass the other one. And what that comes down to is those trucks are already speed limited because companies, large fleets, they use it kind of as a driver tool to keep their drivers from speeding.
Insurance down.
Yeah, insurance, fuel mileage. That's probably the biggest thing. They use this as fuel mileage. They keep the truck going slower. They get better fuel mileage. I mean, you got thousands of trucks. That makes a big difference. You can take two identical trucks and you can put a speed limit on both of those trucks at 65 miles an hour, and they're not both going to run because they're mechanical. And anybody understands anything about mechanical stuff, nothing's exact science. There's always that little variable. So mine might run 65, yours might run 65.2. Then you add in the weight. Maybe I got 30,000 pounds and you got 29,000 pounds on for a load. So all these things go in, and that's what makes these trucks, when they're speed limited, take so long to get around the other one. What happens when these things happen, and what this would just perpetuate the problem, is one, this creates road rage completely. Because people in cars get upset because they're trying to get somewhere, including myself when I'm in a car, and they don't want to follow these two trucks for 10 miles. They want to pass them and go on down the road, whether passing on the shoulder or passing on the left shoulder. Yeah, they cut the truck off quicker. They try to sneak around on the right and cut in. So you have that problem. Car to truck interactions increase greatly. So we all know the safest is when you have the least amount of interactions with another vehicle. So now we increase all these car and truck interactions all over the place. Plenty of research out there shows that the highway is the safest when all traffic's moving the same speed. And in 1995, the federal government gave state engineers the ability to set the speed limits in their state after the nationwide 55. Now we're wanting to go back and say, hey, engineers, you don't know what the safe speed limit is in your state. Montana, you don't know. Washington, D.C., we know what's safer. I think that's a poor thought process to think that Washington, D.C. knows better of what the speeds on their roads should be than the people that live and operate in those states and drive. And finally, if nothing else, you're taking a safety power out of the ability of the driver. And when I say that is, truckers aren't out here doing 100 mile an hour. There's speed limits and they follow those. You come up behind that guy with the pickup truck and all of his stuff, he's moving or lady moving, and they got the mattress tied off, and you're just wondering how this stuff is not falling off the truck. And it's about to. The best thing for you to do is to get in the left lane and pass that person and get on down the road and get away from a problem. And unfortunately, that's what happens, is if you take this ability away, they're not going to be able to do that no more. So then, you're actually putting the trucker and the motoring public into a bad situation with a rule like this. So there's so many things that we can talk about. But at the end of the day, this is just short-sighted, feel-good legislation. I think it was brought up before. People with our last interview, people do things by feelings and emotions. And yeah, there's some emotions behind this with the safety advocates. And as far as the American Trucking Association, which is another one behind this, they just want to cut out competition of small business truckers. And that's where they come from on this, in my personal opinion.
Well, I think the fuel thing for the bigger companies might be the deciding factor on it, right? Fuel and insurance. The concerns I have are the automobiles are all going faster and faster and faster. You got cars with 10-speed transmissions, 8 speeds, 6 speeds. They go down the freeway at 85 miles an hour effortlessly, right?
All the time.
And all the time. I know I've seen me do it at times, especially when I'm late for something. Yeah, I think that the safest is probably everybody moving at the same speed. It's not uncommon in areas to see people running 80, 85 all the time. So when you start putting somebody out there 20 miles an hour slower.
Yeah, I mean, I don't condone driving well over the speed limit. I'm not going to sit here in line and say I never speed either. But I try to go with the flow of traffic. And I think the flow of traffic just sort of seems like it's always about 5 miles per hour faster than whatever the speed limit is. But regardless, to me, and I'm not condoning hiring, but that guy going by me, if I'm doing 70, some guy blows by me at 80 miles an hour, and I'm not saying that's safe, but he is out of my thing. Where I find it more dangerous is when I'm doing 70 or 75 and I come up behind that car, somebody doing 55 or 60, and you got to slam on the brakes or look for an evasive action. That in my opinion, catches me off guard worse than the guy that's driving too fast. And again, I'm not condoning his behavior. I'm just saying, to me, the bigger safety, in my opinion, is when you come up behind that person and you got to lock it down to keep from hitting them because they're putting there on their phone or reading the paper or just driving too slow for where they are driving at.
I wonder who's voting on this and what's the timeline look like for speed limiting legislation.
Well, this was petitioned last year, I think. Anyway, but it was petitioned by ATA and the safety advocates to FMCSA to come out with a rule. FMCSA put out a comment period. They received over 16,000 comments, or right around 16,000 comments, I guess, which is like a record. That's just crazy in today's world. But that's good. Drivers heard this. They spoke up. It's something I complain about, and it's something I preach all the time. You've got to be involved politically. You got to talk to your lawmakers. I hear from FMCSA all the time. We never get comments on things. We want more comments. Okay. The argument I always get back from drivers when I say these things is, well, what's the point? They don't listen anyway. If we do, they don't listen. Well, unfortunately, FMCSA got all these comments. Most of them were against this. And it seems like sometime it was June, they've kicked the can down the road a little farther to late summer, early fall. But it seems like they're going to come up with some sort of speed limiter recommendation. So that's where we are on that front. But what truckers can do right now is there is a bill. OOIDA helped get it brought in with a good congressman out of Oklahoma, Beechin, and I hope I said his name correctly. But anyway, the good congressman is H.R. 3039. This is a bill, if it would pass, it'll deregulate them, FMCSA being allowed to put speed limiters on trucks. Is the long and short of it. If you are a driver out there or a motoring public or anybody out there listening to this, you can go to fightingfortruckers.com is the easiest place. And that's an OOIDA site. It's called fightingfortruckers.com. There's information on there. If you don't know who your lawmaker is, you can find your lawmakers and all this stuff. This is a House bill. You can also send your lawmaker an email right off of there. And what I always tell people, if you go to Fighting for Truckers and you send a comment or an email to a lawmaker or something, you can do it just as quick on there as you can do it on social media complaining about something where nothing's ever going to happen. If you go do this on here, ask your lawmakers to support this bill, co-sponsor this bill, that's actually something that can make a difference. So please, truckers, if we got 16,000 comments to FMCSA, which meant you had to write a letter or you had to send an email or something, let's get 32,000 messages to the halls of Congress, to the different members saying pass 3039, or let's double that, 64,000, whatever. It's real easy. It's real simple. We've made it real easy and simple. Fightingfortruckers.com, HR 3039. 2 minutes on your telephone while you're waiting at a shipper or receiver, you can send something to ask for support of this bill.
Thank you for being on, and we love hearing from you. How many members are currently with OOIDA now?
We have 150,000 men and women behind the wheel, some owner-operators with their own motor carrier, lease-to-carriers, and company drivers as well. Company drivers have to follow the same rules and regulations a lot that owner-operators do. So same hours of service, all that stuff. So we're fighting for everybody.
Well, here from Triple T, our perspective, we want to share all the information with everybody. Education and perspective means everything. Just from an emotional perspective, thinking, let's slow the trucks down, that's going to make it safer. We both know that's probably not the case.
Right.
If we look at history, that's not been the case.
And the one thing I'll say, and I can say this as a truck driver with 2.5 million miles myself of safe driving, there's nobody on the highways who cares more about safety than the men and women driving trucks. That's their office. That used to, I remember when that was my office. Now my office is in here. But that's your office. That's where you make your living. That's where everything goes, comes, good, bad, indifferent to you, is out there on the highway as a trucker. So they are 110% invested, and it's, like I said, no more important to anyone than the men and women who drive trucks. And our federal government, motor carriers, everybody, we would all be better off if we'd spend just a little bit more time listening to those people driving the trucks.
We were anxious to share this with everybody in the industry and get their perspectives. A couple years ago, every driver on the road was a hero. Remember that?
Yeah, sure was.
Was.
When we needed toilet paper and relief supplies.
Yeah, when you needed toilet paper and medication.
Yeah.
That was a hero bringing that to you. Right? Well, it's the same people today.
Bringing you the exact same things. It's just the store shelves are full now, so people don't think about it, but you did. And you need to remember, the people behind the wheel of that truck are just the same as you and me.
That's
They're
right.
just family people out there trying to make a living and keep this country going.
Well, thank you again for the time and the honesty and the candor. We appreciate that. The nice thing, I think, is, everybody doesn't always have to agree on everything, but we have to listen to each other.
Exactly.
So the
And
political
respect.
polarization nowadays is gone too far. I mean, I had some really good neighbors growing up that were Republicans and Democrats, and everybody got along great.
You can look back at Ronald Reagan and Tip O'Neill. They were completely two different people, but they were able to make things happen in Washington, D.C. And we could do that again if we would just come together a little bit.
Yep. Yep. So thanks for being on. We look forward to having you on in the future. We want to follow this and see how it goes. We want to be a voice for everyone. We want to listen to the drivers. We want to understand where everybody's at and try and help promote a positive.
Well, we appreciate that, and thanks for having us anytime. If you need us back, just don't hesitate to call. And I'm sure that George and Narita will keep your inbox full of what we're doing, because we're always, seems like it never dies.
Well, thank you very much, okay?
Yep.
I mean that. And thank you to all the drivers out there. Appreciate what you do every day.
For sure. Thank you, truckers. Be safe.